Good morning, Gloria. You are President and CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council, the global industry association that unites industry across the world and across the whole value chain. Today, we are talking about tourism and nature. Tourism and biodiversity stands in a symbiotic relationship. There's some positives and some negatives on our nature balance sheet. I would like to ask you, from an industry perspective, in a post-COVID world, how do you see this rebalancing and reimagining happen on how we relate to nature and nature and business coexist?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join and have this opportunity. We have seen the sustainability agenda has been accelerated through what we're living. This unprecedented situation has given us also the opportunity to assess some of the things that have been happening, not only in tourism, but in multiple sectors around the world. From the travel and tourism perspective, nature is one of the most important assets. So if we don't protect biodiversity, if we don't protect the natural resources, there is no tourism. So for us, tourism also is part of the solution, and that's where sustainable tourism is so key and so relevant. And that's what we need to engage also with the communities. It's not only public and private collaboration, it's public and private and the community. When we work in communities, for instance, in Africa and Latin America, in Asia, and multiple cities and destinations around the world, through sustainable tourism, we protect those assets, those ecosystems that they are so relevant and so important for us to exist and for the planet also as well. So we need to work together and actioning on the plans that we have defined and taking advantage of the situation. We have seen, as I say before, the agenda for sustainability has been accelerated. More sharing of best practices, more sharing of knowledge and information, and also putting things at the same time in context, how responsible tourism is helping a lot of communities around the world to protect nature and protect the assets. So there is a way to coexist, but we need to have very clear those rules of engagement and how do we do it in a successful way.
So closely related to the biodiversity and species loss existential crisis is the issue of climate change. From your work in WTTC and from your membership base, can you maybe share with us 2 or 3 best practice examples of where you can really see new models emerging in rebalancing how we engage with nature and also mitigate climate change?
Yeah, when we talk about climate change is a big word that includes a lot of things. And sometimes there's confusion, right? I think it's very important here because the experts talk about climate change, we talk about climate neutral, we talk about our footprint, but then we also talk about waste, plastic, and water, and several other things. So from WTTC, what I can tell you, for us is top priority, to the point that we have a vice chair in my board that it was recently appointed to help us to lead the way. A lot of work has been done. Last year, to give you an example, we had our first climate summit, global summit in New York during the Climate Week, where we announced our commitment. We want to be climate neutral, no carbon neutral, climate neutral by 2050. And we have specific measures to get there. Now, some things were missing that now we are working on those. For instance, there was not enough sharing best practices before. For whatever reason, organizations were moving in that direction, but not enough documentation, not enough sharing, not enough measuring. And that's one of the things that we are taking at WTTC, fostering that collaboration, fostering that sharing. For instance, let me give you one example. One of our members, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, has been carbon neutral for years. A lot of people were not aware about that. They use 100% renewable energy, and at the same time, they reduce cost. We're in the process of documenting that case, and Dallas-Fort Worth, which is one of the top 10 airports in the world, is sharing the experience with other airports. Same situation we have, for instance, in reducing waste. When you reduce food waste, you can have a positive impact in climate change. And that's another initiative that we're working with multiple of our members. Reduction in plastic, single use of plastic, and also the thing related with renewable energy and retrofitting. So we have multiple initiatives that we have implemented. But the most important thing I would say is that we need to track, measure, has scientific-based targets. We need to also document as much as we can and share knowledge. And keep in mind that this is not only a responsibility for the private sector, it's also a responsibility for the governments, it's a responsibility for the traveler, that once that they understand the impact, they can work with us. Because the challenge that we had sometimes, it was the traveler, the one that was demanding the bottle of plastics, for instance, for water, or they were demanding buffets, or they were demanding some things that, of course, were impacting climate change. The more that we educate the traveler, the better. But at the same time, we're also talking about the social impact that you can have with tourism, because it's not some zero game. You can have both, and we need to understand what is the situation. We have learned, for instance, from COVID right now, that the poaching, illegal poaching, has been increased. Why is that? Because they're killing animals, wildlife in Africa to survive, to have food on the table. And unfortunately, that is not good, because before, sustainable tourism and the tourists were paying for the people that were protecting this wildlife. The tourists were paying to the communities to protect that. And that's something that we have seen that works well. And that's a nice ecosystem that we need to continue pursuing and duplicating, as I have seen also in my past life in my own country, when we protect the monarch butterfly, or when we protect the whales, for instance, when they were migrating from the north. If you do that in an organized way, engage in the community and engage in the traveler and the public and private collaboration, you can be successful. Bottom line, climate change is a priority. We need to protect nature. We need to protect our natural resources. But it's up to all of us. It's not up to one or the other, right? We can travel, have a responsible travel, and at the same time protect the assets.
Key message is biodiversity conservation cannot be successful without tourism revenue and the jobs and the social inclusion and other way around. Without biodiversity, tourism cannot survive.
Totally agree. Without biodiversity, we cannot survive. That's what we need to find and protect the ecosystem. Travel and tourism has a very interesting ecosystem with the connection between the human, the wildlife, and everyone is very important to maintain. So from our point of view, tourism is just part of the solution. It's part of the engine that help us to bring inclusion. For instance, 54% of the people that work in travel and tourism, women, 30% youth. Minorities are very well represented. Travel and tourism gives you the opportunity to, regardless of your education, your nationality, your religion, your beliefs, or your gender, gives you an opportunity to work where you want and in your country and in your own city. So it's a very inclusive sector, and at the same time, it coexists in a nice way with nature, with protects biodiversity, and at the same time protects the assets. We just need to do this together. When we work in silos, that's when we have bad outcomes. When we work in silos, that's when we have not ideal solutions. When we work in silos and we don't have long-term planning, that's when we have seen overcrowding or over tourism. So that is crucial from our point of view, the public, private, and community, what we call PPC engagement, so that we can have the best plans, protect the environment, protect the planet, be careful of the biodiversity, and at the same time maximize the benefits that tourism provides in creating jobs and providing opportunities, especially for the most vulnerable and communities around the world, with 10% or actually 1 out of 10 jobs in the world.
So we are in a big reset at the moment and massive financial flows as part of government stimulus programs. What is your message to governments about ecotourism and building the infrastructure for future growth? And when we look at these financial flows, using it to our advantage to make sure we protect this upstream reservoir for future tourism growth?
I think now we need to make sure that we learn from the past experiences and we make the best decisions, right? From WTTC, what we have seen, this is not the chance or the time to save money. this is the opportunity to invest. If we want to recover faster, as we were able to see that in 2008, for instance, when we had the financial crisis, and in some regions of the world, we also had the impact of H1N1, we were able to see that once you invest in infrastructure, once you invest in good projects, in supporting tourism, you can recover faster. So our call to governments is make sure that you are responsible, but you also are very laser focused, because every sector was impacted in a different way. And in this case, travel and tourism, unfortunately, was impacted in a significant way, and we need an unprecedented support. So we call the governments to help us not only provide the support during the crisis, but also for the recovery, invest in projects and infrastructure, invest in projects that will support sustainable tourism, invest, for instance, in initiatives that would allow us to have fiscal benefits if you have green initiatives that will protect the environment and all of that. So all of that, I think, is very important. But I would say the most relevant priority that we believe is needed is the international coordination. When the countries learn from each other, when the leaders talk to each other, when they work together, we recover faster. When they haven't done that in the past, like in the case of 9/11, that it took us years to recover, was because they work in silos. Yes, every country look at their own safety and security, they define their own protocols, but the recovery was very painful, and it took longer to rebuild trust from travelers. 2008 was a great case where the G20 was created and we worked together, and that was the best platform. And now we don't see that collaboration among governments. Unfortunately, they are working in silos, and for tourism, for have a sustainable path forward, they need to work together. They need to create these frameworks of understanding and collaboration, and invest in projects that would allow us to have a better future, and also maximize the opportunity for the benefit of all the millions and livelihoods that depend on this sector, and also for the travelers and the entire planet.
Well, thank you very much. Our strength as an industry lies in numbers, and combining our forces, and the WTTC plays a key role in that. So thank you for your leadership in that. And we look forward to seeing you at the next World Tourism Forum Lucerne think tank.
Thank you. Looking forward, and thank you also for all the support and the wonderful job that you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gloria.